Good evening and welcome to this debate for the First Selectman's office in the Town of Salem. Blown away by the size of the crowd. This is really great. My name is Lisa McGinley. I'm on the editorial board and I am an editorial writer for The Day and for theday.com. And I'd like to thank the Salem School and the town and everybody who put this together so that we could all come out tonight. And again, thank you all for coming out. In addition to our live audience, the debate will be available tomorrow for viewing on theday.com, and it will be there, it will be up through Election Day. So if you know people who wish they could have come tonight, let them know they can see it any day they want between now and the election. A couple of things. The Day has had the assistance of the Chamber of Commerce of Eastern Connecticut in organizing this year's debates, and helping us tonight, and we're very grateful to them, are two members of the League of Women Voters who will be serving as timekeepers. Debating tonight are, on my left, Kevin Lyden, the incumbent First Selectman, who is an unaffiliated voter and is running as a petitioning candidate. He is seeking his 5th term. And on my right is challenger Democrat Sue Spang, the Recreation Commission chairman for the past 15 years in town. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Questions tonight will include some that were sent into the Day from Salem voters, anything we received up until 5 p.m. this evening. And we have more questions from some of you who are kind enough to fill out the cards on the table in the back. I'm pretty sure we have enough questions to fill the whole evening, but if anybody really wants to, you can go back there and fill out another card and drop it off up here. Before we began tonight, the candidates flipped a coin, and the winner was Sue Spang, and she opted to have the final closing statement. So that gives the opening statement to Mr. Lyden, and he will speak to you now. Excuse me, 1 second, Kevin. I should say that the opening statements are 60 seconds, and that after that, each candidate gets a question to answer in order. So the person who answers first gets 60 seconds, the person who answers it second gets 90 seconds, and then the original answerer gets an additional 30 seconds if they want it. That's it. We will begin with your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's a great turnout. I want to thank Sue for agreeing to share her ideas for Salem. I want to thank the Day paper, Lisa for moderating, the Day staff, and the League of Women Voters, as well as the Chamber of Commerce for coordinating this debate for our townspeople. It is an honor to be your first selectman. I've been your first selectman now for 8 years. I grew up in Salem. I graduated from this school. It was a lot smaller when I graduated from here. I'll tell you my background because not everyone knows about me. I continued on to college. I got a bachelor's degree in social work from Southern Connecticut State University, and then went to Hawaii to find my wife, Kathleen, who's sitting in the audience. We have 3 children. We had a business in Hawaii. I got my master's degree in business. And then we were approached when I was 49 years old and Kathleen was much younger to sell our business. And I thought, what are we going to do that for? And we had oh, that's it. Stop.
Okay, Sue.
The stop signs just went up. Good evening. First, I would like to thank the Day paper, the Chamber of Commerce, and the League of Women Voters, and all of you who came out tonight. I'm truly honored to be here tonight with Kevin, participating in this debate. I represent not just the Democrats, but a wide variety of residents who believe they should have a choice when voting for their elected officials. As I walked many streets and neighborhoods in Salem, only a handful of people asked me what party I was affiliated with. They weren't really interested. They just wanted to know that I would work on behalf of the town of Salem. They didn't care if I had an R, a D, or a U in back of my name. It's really about the town, not the individual. I know our town, as well as other towns, are facing some difficult decisions coming up, mostly because of the situation at the state level. I've also heard the old adage, don't switch horses in midstream. But this town has never been about one person, nor should it be. We all work as a team, boards, commissions, and school, with mutual respect for each other's roles, with a focus on what is best for the town. Thank you. I should be looking at these two women.
Yes.
You will. They'll make sure you see it. It's
We'll get
fine.
used to it.
All right, first question to Mr. Lyden. This was sent in by a resident of Salem. How can Salem reduce its general government budget to address significant reductions in state annual funding? What can be reduced, eliminated, or funded differently?
That's a very good question. Being a businessman, I always look for ways to reduce spending. When you're in business, you make a profit or a loss. So your taxes are basically your contribution to the town. So if you think of the town of Salem as a company, you are the ones that pay for that. So you have to look for efficiencies, which I have done already with outsourcing the planning, reducing 2 positions to part-time, which saved on benefits. We've merged with Montville to be our animal control officer to save money. We've joined Uncas Health District. We will continue to look for ways to be more efficient with your tax dollars. This is something we have to do with all departments, and we will continue to do in the future.
Thank you. Sue?
Thank you. Kevin has done a good job at reducing some of the cost at the town level, especially in the town and the general government. There's probably other places to cut that, you can look at that budget. And I know the Rec Commission, we've had kept a flat budget for the last 7 years, so we've been very responsible about that. I know there's probably other budgets that could easily, reduce some of their spending. And I think you have to look at other ways also of maybe trying to create some funding with regionalization, partnering with other towns, and conserving in those ways. So I know, I think we're going to have to be very creative in what we do in the future.
Thank you. Do you want to rebut that in any way?
Yes. Ready? Okay. Yeah, I agree with what Sue said. Again, I run the town like I run a business. In the last 8 years, I have given back $1.7 million of unspent money of yours. That's over $200,000 a year. Our rainy day fund in the last 8 years has gone from 5.9% up to 15.996%. That's good business practice. Our town auditor, O'Connor Davies, says we are one of the most fiscally responsible towns in the state of Connecticut.
Thank you. The next question goes first to Sue Spang. What do you see as the most challenging issues the next First Selectman will face in Salem, and how would you plan to address them?
Well, I think that goes back to your first question. The state is going to come through with some pretty severe cuts. Most of them are the ECS grants for the school. I think the Board of Finance has done a great job over the last few years keeping a good budget, a healthy fund balance. They don't borrow a lot of money to pay for things. We kind of pay as we go. And I think it's going to take somebody really with working with the school. They are 74% approximately of our budget. And those are the cuts that are going to be coming. So I think that's where, working with the school, I think that's pretty much where we're going to have to look for anything substantial in the form of cuts.
Thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes.
Okay. What do you see as the most challenging issues the next First Selectman will face in Salem, and how would you plan to address them?
I see a few. One will be to continually watch the budget, because we will be getting less funding from the state. I don't think it's going to be as draconian as Malloy's executive order right now, because there is a tentative budget in place, but there will be less funds from ECS. Our Board of Finance did a very good job of budgeting a $700,000 expected deficit, so we have budgeted for that this year. If we come in about that much from the state, we'll be in pretty good shape. We'll have to tighten our belts next year, and we've already asked all departments to look for Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 reductions, which we can do. We will live within our budget. We are not going to increase taxes that much for people, and we have to look for ways to grow our business in town with economic development, incremental business growth, as well as age-restricted development. We've got age-restricted development now that the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Economic Development Commission has done a phenomenal job on. It's a very, very clear regulation now, and age-restricted development is economic development. We need age-restricted development. We have a aging population where people that are 65 and over is going to increase by 85% in the next 10 years. So we can easily use additional housing for 55 and over, which will add to our...
You can finish your sentence.
Thank you. Will add to our revenues. So.
Ms. Spang.
Yeah, I think affordable housing in Salem is an important issue, but I think it's affordable, it should be affordable for everybody. I know we have an aging population, but I think we need to get affordable housing in here that even our young people, maybe our kids might want to move back and be able to live in the town that they grew up in. I look at the, I think it's the triplex next to Salem Country Gardens that Horace Lindo built. And right now we have a firefighter living in there, a town employee, and we have another person who used to be a town employee. There are places to rent, they're affordable, and those are all people that have contributed to our town. So I think we need really just affordable housing for a lot of people, and I think the Planning and Zoning has done a nice job, and I'm stopping now.
Thank you. Do you want to rebut?
No.
Okay. All right, I'm going to follow up on that one with a question that asks about that aging demographic. In July, the Connecticut State Data Center released a report showing that most Connecticut towns will lose population over the coming decades, with only the 65-year-old and older demographic growing. Salem is one of those towns, although it is also one of the few towns in which the 35 to 54-year-old age group is expected to remain the largest in town. That is the age group of many parents of school-aged children, and as noted, the town will have expansion in the elder group, those who might be on fixed incomes and reluctant to pay high taxes for the school. How would you, as First Selectman, help position the town for the coming demographic changes? I believe you're taking this one first?
Okay.
Did I get that right?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we do have a, for seniors in town, 65 and over, they can get a lower amount of tax depending on if they are moderate income. If that becomes more of an issue, we should probably look at that ordinance again and expand that. As far as the age of 65 and over, I know that's going to explode. The 35 to 45, I think you said, is also probably due to the fact that there's several young engineers moving into town that are working at Electric Boat. So there is a demographic that we have in our town, which we have to be respectful for both sides of it and plan accordingly.
Thank you. Ms. Spang?
We do have to plan for our aging population. You know, I think that's important to do. They do get some tax credits, which is great. But we have to acknowledge, I think, the 35 to 50-year-olds that do move into our town, and acknowledge why they move into our town. And the main reason I believe they move into our town is for the schools, because we have a quality Salem school, and our East Lyme schools that our kids go to is very, very good. I think what we want to do is encourage these people to get involved in the community and foster a sense of community. And I find that many times that after people have their kids go through the school system, they move out. They move out of town, and I'd like to see them stay in town, because that's the age at which they will volunteer for your boards and your commissions and your land trust, and they get involved in the community because now they have the time. So I would really like to encourage a sense of community and keep those people here. You look around now, and there's so many houses on the market, just some of the big box houses that people just either can't afford to live in or are just too big for them, and they are moving out of town and they're moving to places, say for East Lyme, for example, where everything's very close together and there's maybe more of a sense of community because it's a walkable community. So I would like to see something be done here to keep people in town after their kids move out and to foster that sense of community.
Thank you. Do you have anything you want to say?
Yes. I agree that people do move into our town for the school district, but we also have several people that move into town because they love this town. And I have several people that have lived here for years, and they've had their children go through the school and they still want to stay here. So what we have to do is live within our means to make sure those people can stay here.
Thank you. Next question goes to you first, Ms. Spang. Since we're talking about the future, what types of businesses would you like to see come into Salem, and what effect would they have on the mill rate?
I would like to see businesses come into Salem that are more service-oriented, things that would make it easier for the townspeople instead of having to drive out of town for groceries, clothing, gift shops, those kinds of things. They'd be a nice fit for the town. I think it would be welcome for many people to be able to go and shop in their own town for a lot of the services, a dry cleaners, like I said, a grocery store, a health food store, a bike store. We've got a lot of paths, a hiking store. All of those kinds of stores and businesses would be a good fit for our town. I think it's a little bit, I know I hear a lot of people say, well, we need to get business into town to lower our taxes. And to be honest, I think the only thing that's really going to lower your taxes in any appreciable way is going to be some huge big box store. And I think people have to be honest about that and realize that that may not be what they want for their town.
Thank you. Mr. Lyden.
Yes. I think it's important. We have a very active Economic Development Commission. We have been successful in getting business in town. It is incremental business growth, but our taxes, the businesses have gone from paying 4.4% of our taxes to about 5% of our taxes now. So they are going in the right direction. If you look at things like Fox Farm Brewery, they repurposed the Lou Bart's farm. The Anytime Fitness filled out the rest of the Zito building. Salem Health Mart Pharmacy, Wendy and Natasha do a great job with their crew. R&W Heating repurposed the Congdon Garage. So Treasure Hill repurposed Leslie's Farm. We need this for our own enjoyment. We do need a store in town. Like Sue was saying, a store in town, we are considered a food desert, and means you have to drive too far for food. So Prime Cuts does a good job. My son Charlie loves Prime Cuts. We try not to let him go down there too often because he comes back with a lot of stuff. But there are some, it is incremental. It is incremental business growth, and it does help with the tax base. So we have been getting new business in town, and we will continue to work with that.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything?
No, just the importance of having services in town. I mean, we have had some businesses move out of town. Salem Feed and Grain, I think, was a big loss for the town. It was a place where a lot of people went, and it was indicative of the types of businesses that I know this town would like to see. So if we can get more of those and just keep working on moving forward and try to keep the businesses that we have and support them. I mean, we have a certain obligation as a town. You know, if you have those businesses in town, you should support them instead of going out of town for those services.
Thank you. We have a question from the audience that kind of balances that out. First one to get this is Mr. Lyden. How do you feel about open space and the quaintness of Salem, as well as the need for industry and business?
I think with the Salem Land Trust has done a very good job with purchasing quite a bit of property. There's been several farms in town that have made it so their farms will not be developed and sell the development rights in their farms. So I think we've done a very good job with that. The balance is to find businesses that fit our town. I don't think we're going to find a big business. We don't have major highways in our town, but again, it'll be incremental business growth that'll add to our tax base and also add to our services for our townspeople.
Thank you.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. How do you feel about open space and the quaintness of Salem, as well as the need for industry and business?
I like the open space. I've been chair of the Recreation Commission for 15 years, and I think people should get out and enjoy the open space that the Land Trust and the Nature Conservancy has invested in. We need that. We need people to get out. People lead stressful lives. It's been proven if you get out and you walk around in nature, you're much calmer, and I think people need to be a lot calmer these days. And so I think it's great. I applaud the Salem Land Trust for what they've done. There has to be a balance, but again, I don't see either any big businesses, any big boxes, any industry really coming in here. I mean, I would certainly be open to something like a distribution center, say, out by Route 11. I don't think that's going to necessarily happen. Route 11 is pretty much going to stay a dead end at this point, and there's no infrastructure like sewer and water, but those are the kinds of things that would actually lower our taxes and would be a good fit in certain places. I'd love to see something go in next to the House of Doors. It's a perfect spot for a business. That would be a good spot. It would be accessible to a lot of people. It's something that would accommodate a lot of different types of businesses that actually could have some impact on our taxes. So, but the open space is great. I love getting out there. It's an appreciation of nature, and you guys have all done a great job.
Thank you. Do you want to answer that?
Yes. Well, I'll just add that, again, with the EDC, our Planning and Zoning Commission has done a very good job of being business friendly to appropriate businesses. We currently have a storage space business that is interested in moving into town. And we also have Ted Zito, who has his back property behind the pharmacy to be our first age-restricted development, making that 6 units there. So we do have incremental business growth.
Thank you. The next question is for you, Ms. Spang, and I'd like to follow up with something you asked about or mentioned about Route 11. It's finally really dead after years of everybody wondering. What difference does that make, if any, and what opportunities does it open up?
Well, it makes a lot of difference. You know, again, the traffic from Hartford and going to the beaches does now still and will evermore dump out onto our local roads. I'm glad that Route 85 is getting widened and made much safer, but I think that was an opportunity that was lost because of what I had just mentioned as far as being able to support some of larger, maybe possibly industrial businesses that could have gone there. So, you know, other than that, I think that's pretty much the extent of it as far as I can see. I mean, it's not going in. It's too expensive, and to me, it's unfortunate. I kind of wished it would have gone through, but there was just way too many hurdles.
Thank you. Mr. Lyden?
Fortunately or unfortunately, I was the Greenway chairperson of Route 11 for the past 4 years. It was a painstaking process. We went to meetings, and for $1.4 billion, Route 11 could have been finished, except for the environmental issues and the archaeological issues that finally killed it. And basically, Federal Highway said, I asked them, was it worth to spend $1.4 billion? They almost fell off their chair. So for 20,000 cars a day, which is the peak on Route 85, they finally killed the job for Route 11. What we do need, though, is we need safe passage from Hartford to New London. We do have a commitment from Commissioner Redeker of DOT to spend $40 to $50 million on safety upgrades on Route 85. You've seen the small safety upgrade we just did on the Skyline curve, which was $2.2 million. We did that because there's at least one death and several critical accidents, but the $40 to $50 million will be supposed to be for the, and there is a project number. I didn't bring the project number with me, but there is a project number on this for 2020 for addressing Chesterfield, safety issues in Salem and Montville, including the curve or the side of the road by the gun shop in Woodland Drive.
Thank you. Do you want to follow up?
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you. Question from a resident who sent this in earlier, and this starts with you, Mr. Lyden. What do you, how can Salem reduce its total education budget to address significant reductions in the annual state funding? What can be reduced, eliminated, or funded differently in the education budget?
I think the fairest way to answer that is the Board of Ed is currently putting together a Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 reduction in their budget. The budget we currently don't have is tentatively, we have a tentative budget, so we will have a clearer picture of where we are with the budget, so we'll know what type of reductions we need. But the Board of Education, including the superintendent, the business manager, they are getting together to get back to the Board of Finance next month with Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 reductions in their budget. And they would be the best ones to say where they can make cuts that, as it is their purview for spending that money.
Thank you. Ms. Spang.
I agree. It's the Board of Education. They're going to have to look at their budget, see where they can make efficiencies. Maybe it's a matter of combining some of the services with the town. Maybe that won't work. It might be a break even. I know there's been talk of bringing the finance stuff from the school over to the town hall, but I'm not sure that is feasible. You're probably going to have to add another employee to do that, so I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense. Maybe you partner with another school. Maybe you go and share a superintendent when ours retires with East Lyme. There's a variety of things that have to be done, but definitely that is between the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed, and I think they have to, talk, change that. Maybe the tone gets changed a little bit, develop a little more trust in each other, and be able to start to work together on some of these things.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything?
I'll add, I think the Board of Finance has done a very, very good job in a very difficult budget year. And I think the Board of Ed has been listening to them. One thing that I've been a proponent of since I've talked to Paul Formica, Mark Nickerson, and even the current superintendent is, why not share the superintendent in East Lyme? Why not share the curriculum person in East Lyme? We are a feeder school to East Lyme. We're K through 8. We should try to share most of those things with East Lyme.
Thank you. I started with you, right?
I've lost track.
I lost track too. Do you want to add anything? No? Okay, we're good. We're going to move on. I'm trying to keep track of these things. I want to, while we're talking about money, make it worse for a moment. Salem is one of 25 Connecticut towns that have been assigned a, quote, negative credit outlook by Moody's Investor Service in light of the impasse in the state budget process, which looks like it's clearing up. We don't know yet. Salem's fund balance, while admirable, may not be enough to prevent a downgrade in the next year or two without a property tax increase. Under your leadership, what steps might the town take? And that's for you.
Well, it doesn't look like there's anything huge on the horizon as far as anything having to be bonded. I mean, we did the school edition. That should carry us through for a good 20 years or so. So it doesn't appear that it's going to be that critical, that rating for us, as far as, you know, I'm not a big Wall Street person, but it doesn't appear to be that way. There's not going to have to be any bonding. Our finances are in good shape. There is a good rainy day fund, or the unassigned balance. You know, and hope springs eternal. I mean, you know, hopefully the state will get their act together, and things will turn around a little bit for us. But I don't see it as being a huge issue at this point, considering our financial situation.
Thank you. Mr. Lyden?
I was very disappointed to see a negative outlook. We have got a A1 bond rating, which is a very good rating for a town our size. Our outlook was stable, and it was lowered just yesterday, I believe, with about 35 other municipalities. And every other municipality in this state is ready to be lowered because the state doesn't have a budget. We have a very healthy rainy day fund, which is near 16%. And we have bonded the school, and we did a very wise fix what needs to be fixed on the school. We owe about $4 million on the school. It's 2.67%. We're not going to have to finance, we're not going to have to bond anything in the next foreseeable future. You don't bond unless you're bonding at least $1.5 to $2 million. It's just not worth it. So you borrow instead. So we might need a fire truck. We might need to do the roof over on the 96 edition, but something like that you wouldn't bond. We could easily borrow that from Chelsea Groton, from Dime Bank. They finance things like that for 5 to 7 years. So we are in very good shape. It doesn't affect us for the bond rating because they didn't lower the bond rating. It is affecting several other municipalities, because I talked to my counterpart in East Lyme. They're ready to go out for a $47 million bond in a couple months for their schools. So that is going to affect them, because now this is questioning how the municipality is going to be able to pay back this debt.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. We can get back to some quality of life questions, which are always interesting for what you could do. This one starts with you, Mr. Lyden. If it were up to you, what would you do with the former Zemco property on Route 85?
The former Zemco property, which what's fun about Salem is it keeps the name forever. So, so we still have the Gadboys property, which we purchased 12 years ago or so, and so it's now we have the former Zemco property. So it's we'll never think of a new name for it, I guess, till we build something else there. But actually, the Zemco property united our town. We purchased it for $450,000, which was a reasonable price for 15 acres in the center of our town. It was such a long piece of property, it divided our town in half on the town, both sides the town owned. Besides that, we have a building in the back that has all our public works equipment that is kept out of the snow and rain, which keeps it better. We have the community garden there. We have Friends of Library using it. We have Rec using it. We have the school PTO. So it's well used by just about every organization in town.
Thank you. Ms. Spang?
Yeah. I was in favor of the Zemco property. I thought it was a good purchase for the town. It did unite all of those pieces of the town that we owned. And being chairman of the Rec Commission, it was nice to get a lot of that stuff out of my garage and have a place to store some things. It has a lot of room for expansion for the things that the town could need in the foreseeable future. I know there was some talk at one point for maybe selling off the the frontage of that, maybe making a coffee shop, that kind of thing. I suppose that's always a possibility down the road, but I'm really happy we have the Zemco property. It's got a lot of uses, and it has gotten a lot of use, and I don't think Public Works will ever need to expand any place. There's a burn house now there for the firefighters to be able to train, which is a positive thing, and it gets a lot of use. So I was in favor of it then, and I'm happy we have it.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything?
No, Sue.
Okay.
Good job, Sue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Sue, you get the next one, and it's sort of like that. In July, there was a close vote at a town meeting in which residents rejected a proposal from the Salem Historical Society for the town to take over the historic Whittlesey property at a cost of $5,000 per year to the Historical Society for 10 years, plus, I guess, whatever it would cost to keep the house safe from wind and water damage. Some voters said the lack of a state budget figured in their decision to vote against the plan. If there is a state budget, should that proposal be revisited, or do you think the society should look elsewhere for assistance?
I think I wasn't at that town meeting. Unfortunately, I didn't get to hear the pros and cons of that. I thought it was a lot to take on when it was originally bought. For such a small town and the Historical Society. I give them a lot of credit for going for it, but I think it was I'm not sure that I would have been in favor of it had I been on the Historical Society, to be honest, and I know I've got the benefit of hindsight, but I remember thinking that at the time. That was, a big thing to take on. The house had been not habitated for a very long time. It was in tough shape. A lot of money was going to have to go into it to get it so people could go in it. It could be a public building. So I guess in the long way of saying I probably would not be in favor again of the town taking that on, even if the state budget gets better.
Thank you. Mr. Lyden.
I was at that meeting, and the Historical Society building was, by 2 votes, was defeated to buy it for $5,000 a year for 10 years with no interest. The state budget was a concern, plus it was to hold the building for 10 years without selling it. So that was a concern too. So the Historical Society is reviewing that. I think they could look to see someone that might be interested in purchasing it, and with that close, myself, and I see several other selectmen here, a lot of times it's not for us to decide. It's us to move it to a town meeting, let the people decide. It's your decision if you want that or not. So once we have a state budget, if the Historical Society comes back and says they still want $5,000 a year for 10 years, no interest, with only a 3-year agreement to hold on to it, that might be something. I would say we move it to town meeting and let the people decide, when it was that close that just a 2-vote margin. So it is, we own all the property around it, and it is 1 acre of land. So it's, they purchased it for $100,000. So they're not making any money on it, and the Historical Society does a phenomenal job in our town.
Thank you. Do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. Okay. The next question goes to you first, Mr. Lyden. Person who sent this in wants to know, what are your ideas for improvements for the Board of Selectmen?
I thought we were doing pretty good already, so I guess it depends who gets on the board, or I'm the first selectman again. So that would be my first answer. But we have a pretty well-functioning board. We do appoint an acting. We do elected acting selectman, which we do in December. The acting selectman comes in and usually signs things. We do have another selectman who would be available to sign things in the event I'm out of town. We get along very good. We disagree on some things, but we agree on a lot of things, and we do respect our differences. So and I'm open to new ideas with any new selectman if I am the next first selectman again.
Thank you. Ms. Spang.
Yeah, the Board of Selectmen, I always borrow a phrase from my friend Hugh McKinney. something about making the sausage, letting people watch you make the sausage. It's messy, it's not fun, but it's something that I think is really vital to our town. And a lot of times, maybe because it's such a smooth running machine, but I'd like to see the Board of Selectmen discuss things and really hash them out. I know our rec commission meetings, we have a lot to talk about. They can go for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I think the typical Board of Selectmen meeting lasts for maybe 20 minutes or half an hour. I think it's good for residents to be able to see what goes into decision making and to allow all the selectmen to take part in that decision and to hash things out. I mean, that's just the way I do things. I like that. I like that synergy of an idea here and then one coming from another place. And I think you get to a solution that everybody's happy with and has some ownership with. And that's what I would do. And I think it helps when people are watching that at home, because a lot of all the Board of Selectmen meetings are broadcast, and people are at home are going, geez, that's not quite so bad. That was kind of messy, but you know, I think I could do that. And it would give people maybe the encouragement to join a board or a commission. But I would definitely like to be able to, I think I would share a lot more and let the Board of Selectmen make more decisions and help in that process.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything?
No.
No. Here's a question from the audience, and this goes first to Ms. Spang. Did you support the 2017-2018 town budget? If you did, why? And if you didn't, why not?
I did support it. I thought it was a fair budget. I had a budget in there, and I supported that budget. I thought the school was very good. They came with a very small increase. I think they did a great job in keeping their budget down to something that the people would accept. I really congratulate the Board of Ed on that. I think the Board of Finance, as usual, always does a good job. You know, we may disagree on things, but you know, we're all volunteers, and I did support that budget, and I thought it was a fair budget and a reasonable budget, and not a lot of pain to the residents of Salem.
Thank you. Mr. Lyden.
Yes, I did support the budget. We worked very hard on that budget. The Board of Finance is probably better than, I've been back in town 11 years, and I've never seen the Board of Finance work as well as it does now. We are very fortunate to have the members on the Board of Finance. They have a difficult job. We had almost every department take reductions. The school took a reduction, general government took a reduction, we reduced capital. We took a little out of the rainy day fund, and we raised taxes a little. It was very fair how it was done.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. One last question from the audience, and this would go to Mr. Lyden first. Given the list below, please prioritize 1 through 4 and give us the reason why. And the 4 items on the list are education, public safety, the elderly, and town employees.
Education,
public safety, the elderly, and town employees. And the question is to prioritize.
I'm so glad he asked that
okay.
one first.
Yeah. This is nice. A lot of town employees sitting here. You're the best. So, go Rick. Where's Jim? So, this is not a fair question. These are all equally important areas. So you have to spend something on everything. You can't cut any. You know, if you look at what a budget is, you have to provide something for every one of these groups. You cannot prioritize which one is more important. You could have the best education with no public safety. What are you going to do when you have a fire or you have an emergency call? If you don't provide for your elderly, I mean, we have to do that. They're the people that have lived here for generations. And the town employees are the ones that do the work to take care of you. So, I mean, this is not something you can prioritize. So, who wrote that question?
I don't know. Ms. Spang, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, I wrote my notes down about those 4 categories, and each one of those things makes the town go round. I mean, you can't prioritize them. I mean, you have to educate your kids. You certainly don't want to have uneducated kids running around. That doesn't create a lot of great things. You want to be proud of your educated kids. You want to be proud that they're doing well in school, and they measure up extremely well to the East Lyme High School kids. Public safety, I mean, fire departments and our resident troopers, they're great. You know, I mean, you do have to have them. When you make that 911 phone call, you want to make sure that there's somebody on the other end that's going to be there. The town employees, I was a town employee, so I clearly think the town employees are very important, and they do a very good job with the resources that they have. And the elderly, I'm probably going to be there sooner than later, so I think they're important too. And so it's not really a fair question. It's it takes all of those things to make the town go round. So.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything?
No.
Okay, well, we have an easy question now, because you know the answers, whatever they are. This would be for Ms. Spang first. What are your hobbies? What is the last book you read and the last movie you saw?
I have too many hobbies. I do photography, I garden, I do digital art, and I'll stop there for the hobbies anyway. That's more than enough. The last book I read was probably a textbook, but for enjoyment anyway, was a book called The Patient HM. It's a great book. It's a book about a patient actually in Hartford, and a doctor that was in Harvard. And one reason why, besides the psychological part of it, it's a biography, but my mother worked with that doctor. She trained as a nurse at Hartford Hospital, and she worked alongside this doctor. And just the long and short of it, it's a book about a teenage boy that had a head injury, and he had a lot of seizures, and there was a doctor at the Institute of Living in the Hartford Hospital that performed many lobotomies back in the 50s, mostly on women, and ended up actually practicing on his wife. So, and the last movie I think was Hidden Figures.
Thank you. Mr. Lyden, your hobbies, the last book you read, and the last movie you saw.
My hobbies, playing tennis, but my kids both are better than me now, so I'm a mediocre tennis player. I garden with my wife very, very occasionally. She's a better gardener than I am. And I do walk the dog occasionally with my wife. I don't kayak anymore because I hurt my back. And my last book I read was this one right here, Oscar Romero. His reflections on his life and his writings, true account of his life and the inspiration and guidance he gave to so many poor and oppressed people in El Salvador.
And your last movie?
What did we see last? My wife's there, can I ask her?
You just did.
Yeah, yes. It was, I can't recall.
It wasn't a very good movie, whatever.
Yeah.
Did you just
It was in Waterford, though.
Did you just happen to have that book with you?
Yes. No, I brought it with me. Yes.
I assume you don't want to rebut anything.
No, I'm not going to rebut anything.
Okay. We are at the end of the many fine questions that were submitted, and we're at about the right point in which we will shift over to closing statements. And according to the toss of the coin, Mr. Lyden will go first because Ms. Spang chose to go last. So you may go ahead. 60 seconds.
Okay. Well, again, thank you all for coming. It's been interesting and a lot of good questions. Some of them pretty far out there. In a little over 2 weeks, you're going to elect your next First Selectman. The position of First Selectman can be both rewarding and challenging. The responsibilities required for the office include overseeing all full-time and part-time staff of the town, not the school, but of the town, implementing and overseeing the general government procedures for bidding, purchasing, accounting, and record keeping. You must seek grants for the needs of the town, and that's how we got our sidewalk, that's how we got our pavilion, that's how we got several things. You must declare a public emergency, which we've had to do several times, and take action when there's a threat to the safety of our fellow townspeople. As First Selectman, you do this and much, much more. Again, thank you for coming. It is an honor to be your First Selectman.
Thank you. Ms. Spang.
Yeah. Again, I want to thank everybody for coming out, all the people who have supported me and my family. Kevin and I care deeply about the town of Salem, and I think we have very different ideas on how we would lead. I've knocked on many doors and was met with courtesy and a willingness to listen. During those walks, I have gotten a lot of strength and encouragement from the people of Salem. No matter what happens this November, I'm a winner for having had the privilege of meeting all of these residents that I've had a chance to meet. We have a wonderful town, and I'm positive about our future. I'm confident with my experiences that I can lead Salem and all that comes before it. My years of volunteer efforts and the years I've worked at the town hall have given me the experience and the confidence to lead this town. I look forward to being your first selectman, and I thank you for your vote and would ask for your vote.
Thank you both very much for a spirited, informative debate, and thank you to the people of Salem for coming out in large numbers. Good luck in November. Thank you.
Thank you.